CBS News has obtained an audio recording, which is part of the classified documents case against former President Trump.
And the recording seems to contradict some of the former president's statements in the case thus far. CBS 2's Dick Brennan live now in the newsroom with more. Dick.
Well, Maurice and Christine, the recording from 2021 comes from an interview Trump gave to people working on a memoir of Mark Meadows. It could, at the very least, complicate Trump's defense or perhaps pose serious trouble.
He said he wanted to attack Iran and what? He said this was done by the military, given to me.
Donald Trump describing a sensitive document he appears to be holding in the presence of two people who have no national security clearance. He's talking about a secret plan drawn up by the Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley and the Defense Department in regards to Iran.
Let's see.
Yeah.
I just found, isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case, you know. Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. Look at this.
All right, friends, welcome back to Jack Mockler Family. A verified audio recording captures Trump at Bedminster discussing a highly classified military document, shuffling papers and saying, "This is highly confidential. As president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't." The tape, played on national television, has become a central piece of evidence in the classified documents case, and Trump has never offered a coherent explanation. Now let me pause right there because I want you to really let that sink in. This is a former president of the United States, on a recording that would later become central evidence in a federal criminal case, openly admitting that he is holding on to classified information and openly admitting that he no longer has the authority to declassify it. That's not somebody else's interpretation of events. That's not a reporter putting words in his mouth. That's his own voice, preserved forever.
The recording appears to contradict Trump's recent claim that he didn't have any documents with him.
I didn't have a document per se. There was nothing to declassify. These were newspaper stories, magazine stories.
The recording could prove to be key evidence in Special Counsel Jack Smith's indictment of the former president over alleged mishandling of classified documents.
Yeah. As president, I could have declassified. Yeah. No, I can't, but this is classified.
A former Trump attorney says this recording poses a real problem for Trump's defense.
One of the things he's been saying all along is that he could just, wave a magic wand and these documents are declassified.
But a campaign spokesman says the tape proves Trump did nothing wrong.
He's going to say that he never had a document in his hand up in Bedminster, New Jersey, and that he was just waving around some papers willy-nilly, but he was bragging, which is what he tends to do.
Trump's trial for the government documents case is scheduled for August 14th, but Trump's lawyers are expected to ask to push the trial back to a later date. Maurice and Christine.
Saying exactly what he was thinking at that moment. And the document he's referring to isn't some random piece of paper. According to prosecutors, it's tied to an actual Pentagon plan of attack against Iran prepared by the Defense Department and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We're talking about war planning, the kind of material that is supposed to be locked down at the highest levels and shared only with a carefully vetted group of people who absolutely need to know about it for their jobs. Before we go any further into this incredible story, let me be completely straightforward with you about something. You simply cannot trust mainstream media anymore to give you the full, unvarnished truth about stories like this. That's exactly why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories with real context and absolutely zero corporate spin or hidden agendas.
Good evening. We begin tonight with breaking news. We have obtained what is expected to be a central piece of the government's case against Donald Trump. The actual audio recording of the former president talking as if he's showing a highly classified document on U.S. war plans against Iran with people not cleared to even know it exists, let alone what's in it. In a moment, only on CNN, you will hear what jurors will hear one day. The recording was made 2 summers ago, July 2021, at the former president's club in Bedminster, New Jersey. You will clearly hear the former president as he is speaking to several people. According to the special counsel's indictment, they include a writer working on Mark Meadows' memoir, the publisher, and 2 of Trump's staff members. The president was aware he was being recorded. This is the first time it is being played publicly.
These are bad, sick people.
That was your coup, against you.
Well, it started right at the
like
beginning.
when Millie's talking about, oh, you were going to try to do a coup. No, they were trying to do that before you even were sworn in.
That's right.
Trying to overthrow your election.
Well, with Millie, let me see that. I'll show you an example.
If you want to stay ahead of the headlines and understand what's actually happening in American politics, join our free newsletter right now. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every single day so you never miss a crucial development. Just click the link in the description to join our community. And if you just want to support what we're doing and be part of something meaningful, join us. Be part of a community that genuinely cares about the truth. All right, now let's get back to this absolutely wild story. Evening, everyone. We begin tonight with breaking news that has sent shockwaves through the political and legal worlds. We have obtained what is expected to be a central piece of the government's case against Donald Trump. The actual audio recording of the former president talking as if he is showing a highly classified document on U.S. war plans against Iran.
He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look. This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. Wow. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff. It's pages long. Wait a minute. Let's see here. Look at that.
Yeah.
I just found, isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case, you know. Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. But look at this. You attack. And
Hillary would print that out all the time, you know.
she'd send it, no, she'd send it to Anthony Weiner, the pervert.
Please print.
By the way, isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I was just saying, because we were talking about it. And, you know, he said he wanted to attack Iran and what?
With people not cleared to even know it exists, let alone what's in it. In a moment, only on CNN, you will hear what jurors will one day hear in a courtroom. This recording was made 2 summers ago at the former President's Club in Bedminster, New Jersey. You will clearly hear the former president as he is speaking to several people. According to the special counsel's indictment, they include a writer working on Mark Meadows' memoir, the publisher, and 2 of Trump's staff members. The president was aware he was being recorded. This is the first time it is being played publicly. These are bad, sick people. That was your coup, you know, against you. Well, it started right at the when Miley's talking about, oh, you were going to try to do a coup. Come on, let that sink in.
These are the papers. This was done by the military, given to me. I think we can probably check.
I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try to
declassify.
Figure out
See, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, you know, but this is classified.
Now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, it's so, we heard I have, and you probably almost didn't believe me, but now you believe me.
No, I believe
it's incredible, right?
No,
hey, bring some Cokes in, please.
Well, joining us now, CNN anchor and chief correspondent Caitlin Collins, also our senior legal affairs correspondent Paula Reed. Caitlin, first of all, what do you make? This is the first time we are hearing this audio. We'd seen a transcript. There's more in this audio than we actually had seen, I think, in the transcript. What stands out to you?
Yeah, there is more in this. And this is a 2-minute clip of what a recording that we're told is over an hour long. But this is, of course, the part that is at the center of Jack Smith's investigation. And we knew about this. You know, CNN first reported that this existed and that Jack Smith's prosecution had it in their hands. But to hear it, I think really just drives home.
The man on tape in his own voice admits he's holding on to something secret and admits out loud that he no longer has the power to make it not secret. That's not some reporter's interpretation. That's not a leak with no proof. That is Trump's own voice saying the actual words. And here's the thing that makes this even crazier. This tape didn't come out for a long time. It sat there quiet until CNN finally got their hands on it and aired it for the entire world to hear. And once it hit the airwaves, it spread everywhere like wildfire. CBS had it, BBC had it, USA Today had it, Time had it. Every major outlet in the country was suddenly playing this clip of a former president casually talking about secret military plans, like he was talking about the weather. And are you ready for the most mind-blowing part? The document he's talking about on that tape wasn't just some random file sitting in a drawer somewhere. It was tied to an actual Pentagon plan of attack on Iran prepared by the Defense Department and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. This isn't paperwork about golf course renovations or hotel deals, people. This is a war plan. And prosecutors later said Trump showed this kind of material to people who did not have the clearance to see it. That's the accusation sitting behind this whole thing, and it's one that carries enormous legal weight. So now here's where it gets almost funny if it wasn't so incredibly serious. Once this tape went public, Trump had to explain it. And instead of offering one clean, consistent answer, he gave honestly like 3 different explanations, and none of them lined up with each other in any logical way. First, he goes on Fox News and says there was no document at all. He says he was just waving around newspaper clippings, magazine articles, just paper. Nothing important. Except the audio clearly says papers. It clearly says plan of attack. It clearly says done by the military and given to me. That's not a newspaper clipping, my guy. Are you kidding me with this explanation? Then a little while later, he flips the story again. He goes on Truth Social and says the tape was illegally leaked. And get this, he says it's actually an exoneration. His word, not mine. He's out here saying the recording where he admits to having secret information he can't declassify anymore somehow proves he did nothing wrong. Come on. That's not how exoneration works. That's not how any of this works. So why should you care about some old golf club recording? Because this tape became, in the words of prosecutors themselves, evidentiary gold. That's the actual phrase used in his classified documents case. This recording became one of the central pieces of evidence behind a massive number of federal counts related to willfully holding on to national defense information and obstructing the investigation into it. So today, we're breaking this whole thing down piece by piece. What's actually on the tape? Why Trump can't seem to keep his story straight about it? And why legal experts say this recording alone might be one of the most damaging pieces of evidence in this entire saga. Stick around because this is way bigger than a headline. And honestly, before we even dive into the deep dive, just sit with this for one more second. This isn't some anonymous source with a shaky story. This isn't a whistleblower whose credibility can be attacked. This is Trump's own voice recorded, preserved, played on national television for millions of people to hear with their own ears. There's no spin doctor who can talk that away. There's no press conference that can undo a recording once the whole country has already heard it. That's what makes this story so different from a lot of the other headlines swirling around him. This one you can literally listen to yourself, and once you hear it, there's no unhearing it. All right, let's slow things down for a second because I want you to actually understand what's happening here, not just react to a scary headline. A lot of people hear secret Oval Office recording, and they picture something brand new like a fresh leak dropping this week. That's not exactly what this is. This tape has actually been public for a while now. But here's the thing, most people still don't understand what's really on it or why it matters so much even years later. So let's fix that right now. First, let's set the scene properly, because context matters enormously here. This recording happened at Bedminster, Trump's golf club in New Jersey back when he was already out of office. He's sitting with a group of people working on a book project about his presidency. These aren't intelligence officials. These aren't people with security clearances. These are basically staffers and writers sitting around a table having what they probably thought was a casual conversation. And somewhere in that conversation, Trump starts talking about a document. You can hear him shuffling papers on the recording. And he says the words that are now at the center of a massive legal fight. This is highly confidential. This was done by the military and given to me. Now here's where he gets really interesting and honestly kind of damning. He keeps going. He says, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't. But this is still a secret. Think about what that actually means. He's not just saying, hey, look at this cool paper I have. He's specifically acknowledging that the classification status matters. He's acknowledging that his power to change that status is gone now that he's out of office. And he's acknowledging out loud that it's still classified. That's 3 separate admissions back to back to back, all caught on tape for posterity. And what exactly is this document about? This is where the story gets extra serious. It's tied to a Pentagon plan of attack targeting Iran prepared by the Defense Department and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We're not talking about some low-level briefing memo here. We're talking about military war planning, the kind of document that if it fell into the wrong hands could put people's lives at risk. And prosecutors have said Trump showed this kind of sensitive material to people who did not have the clearance required to see it. That's the actual legal accusation tied to this recording. Let's really sit with that for a second, because it's easy to hear military planning document and just kind of nod along without really processing what that means. This isn't a memo about scheduling or budgets. This is the kind of paperwork that outlines how the United States military might approach a conflict with another country. Information like that is normally locked down at the highest levels, shared only with a small, carefully vetted group of people who need it for their jobs. And according to this recording, that kind of information ended up sitting on a table at a golf club in front of people writing a memoir with 0 security clearance between them and that paper. Now here's why most people misunderstand this story, and this is the part where I really want you to focus. A lot of Trump's public defense, going all the way back to when this classified documents investigation first started, rested on 3 basic claims. Claim 1, there was no classified document at all. It was all just regular paperwork. Claim 2, even if there were documents, everything had already been declassified before he left office. Claim 3, he genuinely didn't know any of the material he had was still sensitive. This tape blows up all 3 of those claims, all 3 at the same time, because on the recording, he's literally saying the word secret information. He's literally acknowledging he lost the power to declassify things once he left office. And he's literally acknowledging the material in front of him is still classified. So it's not one contradiction. It's 3 stacked right on top of each other in his own voice, recorded and preserved for anyone to listen to. And that's exactly why prosecutors lean on this tape so heavily in the indictment. They called it evidentiary gold. Think about how strong a piece of evidence has to be for prosecutors to use language like that. This recording became a central piece of support behind a massive number of federal counts tied to willful retention of national defense information and obstruction. This isn't some minor side detail in the case. This tape is one of the anchors holding the whole thing together. So now let's talk about what happened after the tape actually went public, because this is where Trump's response gets almost impossible to follow. First reaction, he goes on Fox News and he says there was no document at all. He claims he was simply waving around newspaper stories, magazine stories, articles, basically saying, hey, don't worry about it. It was just old news clippings. Nothing classified about that. Except the audio doesn't back that up even a little bit. The audio specifically references papers. It specifically references a plan of attack. It specifically says this was done by the military and given to me. None of that lines up with, oh, it was just some magazine article I happened to be holding. And then, not long after that explanation falls apart, he pivots to a completely different defense. He posts on Truth Social claiming the tape was illegally leaked. And then this is the part that really gets me every time. He says it's actually an exoneration rather than what they would have you believe. Let that sink in for a second. He's saying a recording where he personally admits to holding secret information he no longer has the authority to declassify somehow proves his innocence. How does that even work? Can somebody explain the logic here? Because legal analysts have pointed out over and over that there's no coherent legal explanation connecting those dots. It's not an exoneration. It's the opposite. It's him confirming in his own words exactly what prosecutors were trying to prove. And here's something else that honestly kind of wild when you zoom out and look at the bigger pattern. This isn't Trump's first rodeo with secret recordings blowing up in his face. Remember the Michael Cohen hush money tape from years ago? That was another recording that ended up becoming a massive headache for Trump's legal team. Remember the leaked call transcripts with foreign leaders? Remember when Trump himself hinted online that there might be tapes involving his conversations with James Comey? There's this recurring pattern with this guy in recordings. Stuff gets said behind closed doors, thinking nobody outside the room will ever hear it, and then somehow it always finds its way out into the public domain. And honestly, some legal historians have compared this whole situation to Nixon and the infamous Oval Office tapes from the Watergate era. Same basic idea. A president or former president speaking casually about sensitive matters, not realizing or maybe not caring that those words are being preserved and could one day become central evidence in a massive legal case. History has a funny way of repeating itself, doesn't it? And think about the psychology of it for a second, because this is what really gets me. Trump has spent decades in rooms full of people, cameras, microphones, staffers taking notes. You would think at some point somebody that experienced with the media would develop a habit of watching every single word around anyone holding a recorder. But that's not what happened here. He's sitting there casually shuffling papers, talking about a Pentagon war plan like he's showing off a fun souvenir from his old job. That kind of carelessness with that kind of material is exactly the sort of thing prosecutors dream about finding. So why does this whole story get misunderstood by so many casual news watchers? Because people hear secret recording and they immediately think spy movie stuff, some dramatic reveal, some shocking new leak. But the real story here isn't really about the leak itself. The real story is about the contradiction. It's about a guy who spent months building a public defense brick by brick, only to have his own recorded voice knock the whole thing down in about 30 seconds of audio. That's the actual bombshell here. Not that a tape exists, it's that the tape says the exact opposite of everything he's been telling the public. And here's one more layer worth thinking about before we move into the breakdown. Once a recording like this becomes public, it doesn't just affect the legal case. It shapes how people remember this whole era of Trump's post-presidency. Years from now, when people study this period, this tape is probably going to be one of the pieces of evidence that gets replayed again and again, right alongside things like the Watergate recording, because it captures something raw and unfiltered, a moment nobody was supposed to hear outside that room. And that kind of authenticity carries a weight that press conferences and prepared statements just never can. All right, so let's break this whole thing down into simple, clear pieces, because I know that was a lot to take in. Let's make it easy. The tape itself is absolutely real. It's not some rumor or fabrication, and it directly contradicts Trump's own public defense. On the recording from Bedminster, Trump can be heard describing a document as highly confidential done by the military and given to me. He then says, "As president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is still a secret." 3 separate admissions back to back, all in his own voice. That's not spin. That's not somebody else's interpretation. That's a direct quote from him caught on audio for all time. The document he's talking about isn't just some random file sitting in a drawer. It's tied to an actual Pentagon plan of attack against Iran put together by the Defense Department and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And prosecutors say Trump showed this kind of sensitive material to people without proper security clearance. That's the real weight behind this story. This isn't paperwork drama. This is military planning. The kind of information that's supposed to stay locked down tight for very obvious reasons. Trump's response to the leak has been all over the place, and none of it holds together logically. First, he claims there was no document. Says he was just holding newspaper clippings. Then once that explanation doesn't match the audio, he pivots and says the leak was illegal and somehow claims it exonerates him. 2 totally different defenses, both weak, both contradicted by his own recorded words. And that inconsistency, that flip-flopping, is exactly what legal analysts point to when they talk about how damaging this tape really is. So let's talk about why this actually matters. Beyond just being a wild story to watch unfold, this recording strikes directly at the heart of Trump's classified documents case. Prosecutors called it evidentiary gold. And that's not just a dramatic phrase for headlines. It means this tape became one of the strongest pieces of support behind a massive number of federal counts tied to willfully holding on to national defense information and obstructing the investigation that followed. When a case has a recording where the defendant basically explains the crime in his own words, that's about as strong as evidence gets. And who does this actually benefit and who does it hurt? Well, obviously this hurts Trump's legal defense in a massive way, because for months his team built a narrative around three basic claims. No documents. Everything was declassified. He didn't know anything was still sensitive. This tape knocks out all three legs of that stool at once. On the other side, this obviously benefits prosecutors because instead of relying purely on circumstantial evidence or witness testimony, they have his actual voice admitting to the exact thing they're trying to prove in court. That's about as clean a piece of evidence as you can get in a case like this. So what happens next with all of this? Well, as the broader classified documents investigation continues to move through the legal system, expect this recording to keep coming up again and again. Every time Trump or his legal team tries to offer a new explanation, expect reporters and legal analysts to go right back to this tape and ask, okay, but how does that line up with what he said at Bedminster? Because once the public has heard someone's own voice contradict their public story, it becomes incredibly hard to walk that back convincingly. Judges remember it, juries remember it, and honestly, voters remember it too. And here's something worth thinking about as we wrap up. This tape is a perfect example of how hard it actually is for someone, even someone as skilled at controlling a narrative as Trump, to fully control a story once real evidence gets out into the world. You can go on TV and say whatever you want. You can post on social media and spin things however you like. But once people can literally press play and hear the actual words for themselves, all that spin starts to lose its power fast. And let's be honest, this whole saga also raises a bigger question that goes way beyond just one tape or one court case. It's about accountability. It's about whether powerful people get to write their own version of events even when there's hard evidence sitting right there contradicting them. For years, plenty of politicians have relied on the simple fact that most people never actually read the court documents, never actually listen to the raw audio, and just go along with whatever headline sounds most convincing at the time. This case is a little different because the tape itself is so widely available and so clear that it's hard for that usual strategy to work the same way it normally would. So that's the real story behind that secret recording headline. Not some brand new shocking leak this week, but a recording that's still causing massive problems because Trump's own recorded voice keeps contradicting every single explanation he's tried to give since. And honestly, that contradiction, that inability to keep his story straight, might end up being one of the most damaging parts of this entire legal saga. Think about what this means for the broader political landscape too. Every time this tape gets played in a courtroom or on television, it reinforces a narrative about recklessness and disregard for protocol that's hard for any administration to shake off. It shapes public perception in ways that no amount of carefully worded statements can fully repair. And let's be real, the fact that this happened at a golf club surrounded by people who had no business seeing that kind of material speaks volumes about how seriously national security protocols were being taken in that room. There's also the question of what other recordings might be out there that haven't come to light yet. If this one sat quietly for years before being leaked, who knows what else exists in private collections or archives? That uncertainty alone creates ongoing legal exposure that's not going away anytime soon. Trump's legal team has to keep dealing with the possibility that another recording, another document, another piece of evidence could surface at any moment and upend their carefully constructed defenses. And the media landscape around this story has been fascinating to watch too. Different outlets have covered it with different angles, some emphasizing the national security implications, others focusing on the legal strategy, and still others digging into the political fallout. But through all of that coverage, the one constant has been the tape itself, serving as an anchor of proof that can't be disputed or explained away. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a former president whose own words have become one of his biggest legal liabilities. It leaves us with prosecutors who have a recording that makes their case stronger every time it's played, and it leaves us with a public that has heard, with its own ears, exactly what Trump said when he thought nobody outside that room was listening. That's the kind of evidence that changes the trajectory of a case. That's the kind of evidence that shapes how history remembers these events. And that's why this story matters so much. All right, that's it for this one. But trust me, this story is far from over. Next time, we're digging into the other tapes and leaks connected to Trump's history and why this pattern of secret recordings keeps following him everywhere he goes. You do not want to miss that one. See you in the next video.